It's tough to say anybody's having a better year in pro wrestling than Will Ospreay right now. It's tough to anybody to say he's not the best wrestler in the world, for 2023. I don't think it's arguable from the stuff he's been able to put on, and it's amazing to see. So just having him be a part of Impact Wrestling in the UK, on his home turf and stuff like that, I think it's going to be something special in Newcastle.
Hey Josh, thank you for taking the time out to talk to us today. How you doing? How's everything going?
I'm doing well, just back in the mix of things the past few months, training hard, trying to get ready for Bound for Glory, and of course the UK tour coming up for Impact Wrestling.
Indeed, I'm glad you mentioned the UK tour. What were your initial thoughts when it was announced Impact are going to the UK for the first time in years, for the first time this decade, in fact?
I mean, I was very happy about it because, I traveled to the UK back last February for an independent promotion called Sovereign Pro, and the outpouring of fans that were there that were Impact Wrestling fans that just wanted to see me, and they were asking and clamoring for more Impact Wrestling content to come over to the UK. And not just there, but over the years on social media and stuff like that, people have been clamoring for Impact Wrestling to come back and make a return because it's been, I don't know, 8-9 years since we've been out there. And, there's always been a ton of Impact fans in the UK. So being able to go back and get in front of those fans in a live, event setting, and the UK fans, for live shows, they're special, man. Yeah, I think it comes from the soccer, the football chants and stuff like that. They're always really engaged crowds. They love the product. And I think, since I've been clamoring to see it for nearly a decade now, by the time we come back, I think, it's going to be a recipe for something amazing.
Indeed, recipe for something amazing. Impact Wrestling do have a few UK stars backstage. What was the overall backstage reaction like too? Were they also looking forward to going back after so long?
Yeah, it's all excitement because, like I said, the fans have been wanting it, and the wrestlers want to be in front of those fans that want to see us, and they want to support us and all that stuff over the last few years. So just getting back and be able to do what we do in the ring and putting on some of the best wrestling shows possible, and to do it in front of those fans that really want to see it, that just makes it special. So everybody's excited.
And you even mentioned the UK fan base as a whole. Any particular places or any, you mentioned soccer, any soccer games you'd like to go visit while you're there?
Well, I grew up with my grandfather. He was from Manchester, born and raised, and he immigrated to Canada in the late 70s. So I grew up waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning with him to watch Manchester City, not Manchester United football game. So I guess that would be my team.
That's amazing. But hey, you did mention your upbringing. You are from Canada yourself, and Canada and even the UK both have such strong legacies in wrestling itself. Your thoughts on that Impact going to the UK and carrying that forward? You think more international tours around the way for Impact Wrestling?
I certainly hope there's more international tours, but the synergy between Canadian and UK wrestling, I think that was born in the late 70s and the 80s through Stampede Wrestling. I was trained by a Stampede graduate with that style, and I think it was just kind of a hybrid between the North American style and stuff from the UK that was brought over by the likes of, the Dynamite Kids and the British Bulldogs and stuff like that. And it makes for, what I think is some of the best wrestling in the world. I grew up and I came into wrestling and I discovered World of Sport, the Johnny Saints and everything else. And, it's just a completely different style that they came up in. That is, for us coming over to Impact Wrestling, we're bringing people like, Alex Shelley, who is somebody who's perfected kind of that mixed style of what World of Sport used to be with the chain wrestling and stuff like that, and mixed it in with, this whole new style of pro wrestling in this day and age and perfected it. So I think it's some of the best wrestling in the world, and I can't wait to do it in front of that crowd.
Some of the best wrestling in the world. They also are home to some of the best wrestlers in the world. Will Ospreay, Zack Sabre Jr., Flash Morgan Webster, Mark Andrews, and Joe Hendry. Your thoughts on each of them? You have worked with Flash Morgan Webster, Mark Andrews, and Hendry before, but Ospreay and ZSJ in particular.
Well, just like you said, the ones that are in our locker room, they're coming in, and for Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews. I've known Mark Andrews specifically since he was I think 18 years old. He showed up on an independent wrestling show with Pete Dunne at 18 when they traveled to America for the first time and lived in somebody's basement for a couple months just to get noticed. And these guys were stealing shows at 18 years old, and I was the one having to follow them. And those were my first memories of those guys. And they've only taken it even further since to doing what they're doing now and being some of the most amazing wrestlers in the world. But for Joe Hendry to go home in front of his, hometown crowd there in Glasgow and, move through the UK, I think that's very special because he's carved out a spot for himself in Impact Wrestling, and to go home in front of that crowd, I'm sure the reception is going to be huge. And you already mentioned Zack Sabre Jr., probably not arguably the best technical wrestler in the world, for me to say that. It's not difficult. He's up there with Alex Shelley and John Grisham. I think they're alone in that kind of top three, but and then Will Ospreay. Yeah, it's tough to say anybody's having a better year in pro wrestling than Will Ospreay right now. It's tough to anybody to say he's not the best wrestler in the world, for 2023. I don't think it's arguable from the stuff he's been able to put on, and it's amazing to see. So just having him be a part of Impact Wrestling in the UK, on his home turf and stuff like that, I think it's going to be something special in Newcastle.
Indeed, you did mention Ospreay, and he is going to be part of the Impact UK tour. He is going to appear at Turning Point as well. Would you like to face Will Ospreay in the UK at Turning Point, hopefully with the Impact World title around your waist?
If all things come together at Bound for Glory, I win that Impact World Championship, I'd be more than happy to put it on the line against Will Ospreay. And if I don't, win that World Championship at Bound for Glory, I would still love a chance to step foot in the ring with, the person who's considered the best wrestler in the world and see, how it all shakes out and where I stand up.
Quick sidebar on that thought. Do you think Will Ospreay could challenge for the Impact World title, or would he have to earn it like the rest of the roster?
There's always special circumstances involved with this. And like I said earlier, it's tough to say anybody's having a better year than Will Ospreay with the wins he has over, the likes of Okada and, Kenny Omega, and the list goes on. So I think he would definitely put him in consideration for that World Heavyweight Champion or the World Championship. And I don't think it would be arguable for fans to say he didn't earn it, based off the wins he has in this business. I think we recognize wins across everything with our relationship with New Japan and everything else. So he's definitely a contender.
Indeed. And one of the other names you had mentioned too, Joe Hendry, going back home. You are going to be working closely with Joe Hendry on Gut Check UK. Your thoughts on that initially, and how would you explain it to certain viewers who may not know what Gut Check is?
Well, Gut Check is basically just a tryout system for us to notice wrestlers from around the world, taking it to the UK, finding wrestlers in that specific UK scene across, Scotland through the entire UK, and giving them an opportunity. And we're going to take, the winner from that is going to get a 6-month contract to come to Can-Am Wrestling Dojo, which is, I'm the head coach in. We're opening in November. And, I'm excited to, go out to the UK and find that special talent, bring them over here and cultivate them, see if they can do something special. And then, furthermore, get signed to an Impact Wrestling contract from it.
Indeed. And of course, we have gone over a lot of the UK talent that are in the world today. You may just find the next Will Ospreay or Zack Sabre Jr. with Gut Check this time around.
Well, the one special thing about the UK that I've found out over the years is when I started training, I was 18 years old, and I thought that was pretty, normal. And over the years, like I said, I met Mark Andrews and Pete Dunne early on when they were 18 years old, and they'd been training for upwards of 6 or 7 years at that time. So they start far sooner there. They polish themselves well sooner. So you can find young talents that are already leaps and bounds ahead of people in North America because they end up starting much later here.
You mentioned 18-year-old you, but I think it was your first in-ring promo in a while at Impact 1000, where you spoke about 15-year-old you discovering Impact, or TNA, I think it was called back then, for the first time. What was your earliest Impact Wrestling memory that you have?
I have so many, but the first one, I remember it like it was yesterday. I came home, I was working at Subway. I was a sandwich artist back in the day in high school, and I came home from my shift just in time for 8 o'clock to flip on that pay-per-view on Wednesday night. And the very first match was the Flying Elvises against AJ Styles, Low-Ki, and Jerry Lynn. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I was familiar with Jerry Lynn, obviously, from his ECW days and stuff like that, and a little bit of the Flying Elvises from, some of their members were in WCW. And I hadn't really seen AJ Styles when he was in WCW. So AJ Styles and Low-Ki were completely new to me as a fan, and they blew me away in that very first match in whatever 10 minutes it lasted. And that was the hook that, was set in me to make me a TNA fan, an Impact Wrestling fan from the very beginning. And I didn't miss a Wednesday night pay-per-view anytime after that. And obviously Low Key and AJ Styles are just something special, and they really established that in me that very first night.
And would you say that is also your favorite Impact moment of all time, or do you have something else over the years?
I do have a different one. The most memorable moment to me is where Kurt Angle faced off with Samoa Joe in his debut, and that headbutt, and just the image of Samoa Joe rising up from behind Kurt Angle as he was posing afterwards, with like the bloody forehead and everything, and then it was just like, we're off to the races, and the brawl started and everything else. So like that is the iconic moment that is forever burned in my mind as like the moment for Impact Wrestling for me.
You mentioned Joe and Angle. Across Impact history, if there's one person you would like to work with for the first time ever, and again, so two-part question, so two answers, who would that be?
First time ever, it would I think it would have to be Kurt Angle, but that obviously isn't possible with, double knee replacement happening sometime last year, and his days in the ring are behind him, unfortunately. But I've said it time and time again. I think the matchup that would really garner some attention from the pro wrestling world and make me the happiest is to have Mr. TNA, who I think is AJ Styles, the first person anybody thinks of when they think of TNA, against me, the Impact Wrestling guy for the last 4 years. The face of the company now. So just having the two faces, the two different eras face off one-on-one, I think that'd be something special.
And you being the face of the company, your year-long title reign, almost year-long title reign, is that still the goal for you? I remember you said that you wanted to hit that year-long title reign because it's such a rare achievement.
Yeah, I felt like something like 2 weeks short of that mark, unfortunately, due to injury.
Unfortunately, yeah.
I was pretty close to actually achieving that goal because, year-long reigns in this business are so rare, with exception to, of course, Roman Reigns. But my goal is to just regain that Impact World Championship and to, pick up where I left off and just having a dominant reign and trying to build this company up and get the eyes on it that it deserves.
And another accolade that you had more recently, you were ranked number 9 in the PWI 500. Higher than a lot of the highest ranked Impact wrestler there is, higher than even a certain Cody. What were your thoughts on that? Did you think you should be higher?
Well, no, I can never say I think I should be higher. I'm going to leave it up to the people that make the list. I believe I was like 14th last year, and I can't really remember, but it just goes off the year I was having. It's a testament to both Impact Wrestling and the wrestling world and the fans around there that that give the credit to somebody. And luckily, it was me. That run I went on from matches with Mike Bailey, Eric Young, Eddie Edwards, Alex Shelley at Emergence. That title reign was something special. I really put a lot of work into trying to have the very best matches possible that I could have, to try to get the most eyes on this company. And, for it to come out in the PWI that I was ranked number 9 and, several Impact talents were ranked in the top 50 this year, it goes to show that the work we're all putting in as a locker room is being, seen, and we're getting, the recognition we deserve finally as, a powerhouse in the pro wrestling industry.
There were 2 recent announcements or inductions into the Impact Wrestling Hall of Fame. I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Mike Tenay and Don West, of course, and more recently, Traci Brooks at Impact 1000.
Well, Mike Tenay and Don West, like I said, I started watching this at 15 years old, on Wednesday nights, and I've watched it ever since. I've always been a huge fan. I think Don West is the voice of TNA. I think that, when I close my eyes and I try to hear what I was watching, I'm going to hear Don West's voice screaming, really selling things for you. And I think it really highlighted the people I mentioned, like the AJ Styles and the Samoa Joes. Like if I think of AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe versus Christopher Daniels and Unbreakable, that iconic 3-way, I am hearing Don West on the call when all these amazing things are happening. And Mike Tenay was the perfect sidekick for him, the one that's really gonna. I was always a huge Mike Tenay fan in WCW, and then furthermore in TNA and Impact Wrestling, because he had such he was such a genius. And I didn't know the names of some of these moves. I didn't know how to describe some of the things I was seeing. And he was the one that really educated me on all those things as a fan. And then, I parlayed it into becoming a wrestler. So his knowledge of pro wrestling to go with the energy that Don West brought, I think that was a perfect tandem. And, I'm the biggest fan possible of them. And Traci Brooks going into the Hall of Fame, more than justified, the first knockout really ever. Somebody that, for me, my memories of her are being, Bobby Roode's manager, and Bobby Roode split off from Team Canada and really, became a main event star and all these other things. I also remember her from, of course, America's Most Wanted back in the day. But she's something special. She's also a Canadian talent and more than justified to go in the Hall of Fame. And I'm very excited for her.
That's amazing. But at Impact 1000, when the Traci Brooks announcement was made, Frankie Kazarian and Traci Brooks had that moment in the ring. Was that a surprise to you all backstage as well? Because her reaction was so raw, unfiltered, almost as if she didn't know until that moment. How was your reaction to that announcement?
I believe my reaction was the same as Traci Brooks because none of us knew it was happening until that moment. I think Frankie was the only one that was in on that one. And that's the kind of thing that makes those moments so special. If she had known beforehand, you wouldn't get that genuine reaction. And those tears were completely real because it's something I don't believe she ever thought would really happen. And it's just recognition for everything she did in her career now, as a mother, to Rebel, as you saw Rebel in the ring when the announcement was made, that's really the role that she has right now in her life, and she's embraced it full like tenfold. And to be able to share that moment with her son, as a father, it's something that gets me choked up thinking about because I've been lucky enough to share moments with my sons in the ring in Impact Wrestling over the past few years, and I know how special it is. So no doubt it has to be special for someone like Traci Brooks.
I don't think it's an if at this point, more like a when, but when you do get inducted into the Impact Wrestling Hall of Fame, who would you like to induct you?
I don't know if it's, a definite thing. I don't want to think that far in the future, but if it were to happen, I have not given this any thought. I would probably pick, Coach D'Amore or Tommy Dreamer. They're both people that have helped really coach me in these past, especially the past 2-3 years since I broke off into singles, and they've helped me so much. And Scott D'Amore is somebody that, I had no relationship with until I, got signed to Impact Wrestling. We've really grown together, and he's helped me so much, for my own success. And it is something that I'm very appreciative of and I have so much respect for. So I think him putting me in the Hall of Fame would be totally justified.
It's amazing. But hey, final question before we wrap things up here. Do you think, is there a chance that the North could ever reunite again, go for a tag team run, especially given your recent interactions with the Rascals? You had your first ever Impact pay-per-view appearance alongside Ethan Page against the Rascals, if I recall correctly. It was you, him, and Moose against the three of them. Would you like to run that back?
I don't know. We kind of play in separate sandboxes, and we really don't have much of a relationship anymore because of that. And I'm really not focusing on anything tag team wrestling. If I were to tag with anybody, honestly, I don't think Ethan Page would be my first pick right now because there's so many people in Impact Wrestling. I mean, it's tough to say now going into Bound for Glory, but I think I'd have to pick Alex Shelley as my partner, even though he has a long storied history with the Motor City Machine Guns. I just think that the blend together would be nice. If I had to pick anybody else, it'd be Mike Bailey, just for the Canadian connection. Hopefully, he can bring back Team Canada 2.0 one day.
Indeed. And if that happens, that would be amazing. But thank you so much for your time, Josh. Have a great one and best of luck at Bound for Glory.
Thank you. I'll need it.